man speaking in the city square, trying to tell somebody that he cares. Can you blame the voice of youth for asking what is true? Yeah, the ones that you're calling wild are gonna be the leaders in a little while, when will the lonely voice of youth cry what is true? This old world's waking to a newborn babe, and I solemnly swear it'll be their way. You better help that voice of youth find what is true. And the lonely voice of youth cries, what is true?
Boom! Here we are. If you're not watching, you should feel guilty. We're going to talk about guilt today. We have our Sam Pell big bottle, which we got at the last minute because we didn't have any in the house. That was a big disaster. We have our Muppet Cup. Everybody should have a Muppet Cup. Have you considered? You should. Everybody should consider. And we've got our skull mug. Yes, full of bear claw. Oh, bear claw from Table Rock Tea Company. So good. So good. And then, of course, we got the captain's mug right here. And that's got our lovely turmeric ginger tea with some Manuka honey that I add. Let's get started. We've got our favorite book, Aphorisms from Nassim Taleb. We're just going to start like right in the beginning this time because we can, and we might as well. Preludes. The person you are the most afraid to contradict is yourself. Sounds about right. I agree. Taleb to the rescue again. That theme will come up in our live stream for sure. So I want to talk about guilt. Somebody brought up guilt with respect to the Nolan movie. Somebody else I saw today brought up Gerard. I was like, I don't know, guys. That's an interesting mirror. What's wrong with you? So these patterns, if reality is indeed a self-similar fractal, which of course it is. I wish we would put self-similar in there, it matters. But then you can see where guilt might lead to civilizational suicide. So you can think of guilt on 3 levels while I'm going through all of this. You can think of it at the personal level, at the level of a group, at the level of a class, which is larger than a group, obviously, at the level of a civilization. You can do all of that. It's not a problem. And hopefully, as I go, I can give you a flavor for how guilt is used against you, we'll say, at these other layers. But you really need to get a hold of it at the layer of you. So that's what I want you to keep in mind, this sort of fractal nature. Because I think it'll help you understand the world better. Right. And it's not that my goal is not to allow you to help yourself with the things I am telling you. Sometimes that might be possible, but it's really about understanding the world because you can't ultimately help yourself. You're in a world, right? You do all kinds of things to make yourself taller so you can play basketball better. I mean, I've tried, but it's not going to work, right? Because there are constraints, and you need help from the outside, and that's going to be a theme that comes up. Handsome, good to see you. I have a crust in bed after breakfast in bed toast. Bed toast. The heck? Why? Why do these people from the UK say weird things? I don't know. Um, just don't be from the UK. There's a lot of guilt there. It explains a lot of what's going on over there, by the way. So let's start with a bit of the etymology, kind of, or more the older definition. Crime, sin, moral debt. But basically, some feeling that you owe something as a result, usually, right, of your own action or inaction. Very important. It can be debt, in essence, to the world around you. This word world bore you, right? You are, once you come into being a part of this thing we call reality, that is the reference to reality that is correct. All other definitions cannot be correct, so ignore them. I don't know what else to say about that. It's pretty easy, actually. Everybody makes it hard. It's super easy. Healthy people realize and integrate guilt. Unhealthy people do not. It's either an oppressive tyrant for these unhealthy people, right? And that's much of where we'll say the modern idea of tyranny coming. Tyranny is everywhere, right? Well, the tyranny is just a psychological projection of your own guilt. That's really what it is. I mean, it's not only that. That's not all the tyranny, but it's like 90% of what people are calling tyranny now is psychological projection, 100%. Or it could be, the hardcore evidence for a bad god, a mean god, an evil god, or something that's oppressing us in some way, and then the tyrant and the god are the same, so they're not that different, right? But they are different, so I differentiated them, right? And the thing is, guilt is when you have been judged and found lacking or wanting. You're good enough. It's simple as. Or is it? The issue here isn't guilt good or bad, but discerning good guilt, say a guilt that can be mediated, right? Versus imaginary guilt. A lot of people feel guilty for things they weren't involved in and couldn't have been involved in and could never become involved in. I mean, this is not an unusual phenomenon, right? Anything in the past, like slavery, like I wasn't there, man. I don't know what to tell you. I can't do anything about it. It's in the past. That's what in the past means. In case people are very confused about this, by the way. Right? So that there's nothing that can be done by me about that. I can do something now, but it won't be about that because that already it happened. Right? It's imaginary guilt. We'll say at a societal level. And this could be imposed, this feeling of guilt from inside or outside, right? So it's always a discernment issue. Sometimes you feel guilt inside yourself for things that you did or did not do that you either shouldn't have done or should have done. But sometimes the guilt is outside, you're just being told that you're a white person and white people bad. It's all hypothetical, of course. I wouldn't actually use real examples because, I mean, why would you do that? And that makes things all the more confusing for us because the feelings always feel like they're coming from the inside, right? Especially if you're being subtly bombarded with bad messages constantly that aren't quite conscious enough for you to catch. People do that. I mean, usually only evil people do that, and usually that's only evil. Not always, but also, like, just think about that. Super important. And notice that the inside versus the outside is the biggest problem because all our feelings feel like they're inside of us and that they're fully encapsulated by us. That's going to become important later. And the thing is, often guilt isn't about, say, debt directly, right? Those two things are not at the same layer of analysis. It's the lack of responsibility, right, that causes the debt that creates the guilt. Now, that's not the only thing that causes debt. So, debt and guilt are not like this, right? Debt is independent of guilt, and guilt is independent of debt. You can feel guilty without owing any kind of debt whatsoever, and that guilt can be real. You could always cast it as like a debt for your future self or something, but it's a weird way to talk about debt. I don't recommend you do that. I understand people play word games. I get that. I'm really good at it. If they want to play word games, that's fine. They should come here and I will show them how to be a loser at it because I will be better than them. No, really. I'm really good at that. Stunningly good, actually. It's not even a fair fight. I'm sure there's somebody out there that can beat me, but they're not gonna disagree with me enough to want to do that. If you know, you know. That's what that really means. The issue becomes your willingness to accept or reject the responsibility, and then how you mitigate that responsibility. And many times, what you feel guilty about cannot be made up for. It can't be mitigated directly at all. Right? Something else has to be done about this lack, about this debt, about this feeling that you have. A lack of humility can override guilt, but mostly that's what creates guilt. When you don't have the humility to realize that you're definitely making mistakes, because everybody's definitely making mistakes. And some of those mistakes are big enough errors that they cause problems outside of yourself and not just in the future necessarily. And therefore, those problems have to be accepted and mitigated, dealt with. That that's what creates guilt. You need to accept those problems and mitigate them. Until they're mitigated, the guilt remains. But some people, they just have so little humility that they do whatever they do and everything's fine and they feel totally justified. And in some things, you should feel totally justified. Right? But you need to discern what those things are. So, how does guilt impact us? What things does it do to us? Why is this such a big deal? Why is it crushing guilt? Why does guilt move us at all? Why does it have any effect at all, really, if it's an a feeling that you can encapsulate and sort of deal with on your own, maybe stoically or something. The thing is, guilt is a question to our identity. It's a question to our unity, and it's a question to our imaginal realm, our predictive map of the world that allows us not directly to function, but to predict the world well enough that we feel confident about how we're functioning within it. And that's why it's crippling sometimes for some people. It's usually highly disruptive in the moment for everybody. And if it's a good signal, there's a guilt there that is correct. It's not imagined. It's not like, oh, I'm responsible for people clubbing seals or the climate or some other thing that you definitely can't be responsible for. Um, Internal or external, right? Because again, there are internal ways in which you sense guilt, and it really doesn't, we'll say, affect the outside world quite as much in that way, other than there's a deficit to the outside world because you're not doing something that could be better for the outside world, right? Um, then, if it's a good signal, you need to do something about it. You need to resolve it. You need to mitigate it somehow. It needs to be mediated. However, this feeling of guilt is often too vague for you to know what to do or what to stop doing to be useful to you. As with so many things, so many things in life are like this. It's a vague idea. You kind of get the feeling, but you're not sure where that feeling needs to go, what needs to be done, right? And yeah, and something. There's guilt and there's a sense of guilt. Sometimes your senses betray you. Sometimes you feel bad for no reason. Sometimes you just get depressed. Sometimes you get angry at nothing in particular, or nothing that you can identify consciously. These things happen. And there are some people, maybe maybe in the other room, who will feel guilty about actually anything that happens at all, anywhere, even things that are good. Like, oh no, it's like what? That's a good thing. Why is it? I don't. Some people are like that. My grandmother used to worry about everything. She just felt guilty about everything. It's like, calm down. This isn't. You're not even involved. Just chillax. Um, And yeah, there's a culpability, a sense of guilt that we get as people, and sometimes that's valid. In fact, probably most of the time it's valid. Sometimes it's not. Some people are super sensitive, right? Women tend towards neuroticism. One result of neuroticism is increased feelings of guilt, inappropriate feelings of guilt in particular. Uh, Discernment and self-knowledge are essential. Well, yeah, they are, but these are the two most difficult things ever, right? To avoid false accusation and false self-accusation. Sure, but you can't do it by yourself. This is one of the problems. I'm gonna dive into that for sure. There are those who want you to feel guilty about being one of too many humans who take up space and resources. Yeah, exactly. There's lots of things that cause cause people, because guilt is such a powerful force, and because we're not familiar with it, which hopefully I'm helping to mediate here. Uh, these people are wielding against themselves in many cases, and against others. A lot of people just have high anxiety. Well, one cause of high anxiety is this deep feeling of guilt, right? And if you set really high standards for yourself that maybe you can't meet or meet regularly enough, I mean, you're going to have high anxiety, and because you feel guilty that you're not meeting your own standards, and somebody can weaponize that, and the next thing you're out marching against climate change, or trying to save the whales, or some other stupid thing that you can't do. And so what we try to do is we try to remove this guilt. And one way to remove guilt, kind of pretty reliably actually, is to remove judgment, right? Yeah, no discernment, no judgment, no problem. Like, actually. And of course I have videos on all that. Discernment, judgment, action. Nice threesome. Nice three consecutive live streams. And if you believe that judgment only comes from other people, which a lot of people do because they're stuck in a binary world, it's flat world, right? They've been told equality doctrine, they're Marxists. It's the simplest way to think about the world, is just to think about the world in terms of a person, you, and maybe you can upgrade that to like two people and see my early model videos. Although I have new model video coming, by the way, which rolls them all up, all the early ones. Although I rewatched my first model video, which is one of the oldest videos on the channel. It is really good. I was like, holy cats. What? Why can't I improve from that point? Like, what? I didn't get any better. That was brilliant. Um, there's a new one coming. updated slides, of course, now that we have better graphics people. So people a lot of times think judgment comes from other people and it has no other source. It's just other people judge and that's the problem and they shouldn't judge. And then you won't feel guilty. Of course, that doesn't work. It actually kind of backfires kind of severely. And if you think of having that model in your head as people being the only source of judgment, and then you don't have those people saying those judgy things to you or the things you perceive as judgy, and your life isn't getting any better, it might spiral out of control. You might shoot somebody on a college campus for talking. I don't know. Could be. It could be. Um, and boy, are you in for a ride, right? Because judgment doesn't only come from other people. This is binary thinking. It's there's two types of binary thinking. I'm going to do a video on binary thinking soon. There's two types of binary thinking. This is like the worst kind, right? This is the lowest. We'll call it the lowest form of binary thinking. So it's a big issue, right? But ultimately, the issue quickly becomes that the pre-created order of the universe judges you. There's a things that were here first. There's all these things, right? And they're already ordered, like a time, that sequence, right? That was already here. I really didn't get any vote on it that I know of, that I'm aware of. If I did get to vote on it, I don't know how my vote went. I have no idea. So I don't remember anything from before I was born, and the things I was born into were here first. It's kind of a prerequisite of being born. You have to be born into a time and a place. That time and place has to be there first, kind of, I think. I don't know. I don't know why this is hard. This is actually hard for people. I don't know why. It really is. Like, people do not understand what I just said. Don't know why. They're all leftists. Like, coincidence, random, I'm sure. This pre-created order, if you kind of push against it, right? Partial definition of reality is that which objects. That's the way in which it's objective. It objects to you. That's not what you thought. All right. To your subjective experience, right? My subjective experience might be, well, I want to be able to jump off a 50-story building and live. Well, I mean, sure. I don't think reality is going to cooperate, though. Maybe you can mitigate that with the help of a lot of people, like somebody invents a parachute, somebody, perfects the parachute, somebody sells you the parachute, teaches you how to use the parachute, you use the parachute. Maybe with enough cooperation and participation, you kind of get around that problem, but basically, you're going to fall and you're going to die unless you have a lot of help. And even if you have that help, the bungee cord guys, the parachute guys, people die. Still happens. That's reality objecting to your subjective experience, right? So there's a judgment in that. There's a judgment in the way the world is put together and the way the world functions and operates. And if you are participating in that poorly, then you will be judged. There will be consequences that will be unpredicted by you. It upsets your worldview, the world order that you think that you're in. You're not in that world order. And this reflection of the world back, like the consequence that you didn't anticipate, that causes the judgment. It causes you to judge yourself. Wait, my worldview was wrong. The imaginal world in my head, where I have a map of reality, is incorrect somehow. But I don't necessarily know how. Just because you know it's wrong, it doesn't mean you know how it's wrong. The car's running and you hear it skip and you're like, oh, replace the spark plugs and it's still skipping. Oh, well, must be a timing problem. Maybe it's a coil. Hey, who knows, right? Like, you don't know. And the existence of others, just the fact of their being, judges you as well. There are other people in the world. What are they doing? Why don't they care about what I care about? Why can they play basketball and I am too short? All of these things give you contrast for the world, the reality that you're in, and then that judges you because you see these things, they're not you. They're like you and not like you in different ways, and different ones are more like you or less like you, and more different from you and less different from you in different ways. And it's very confusing. That's all judgment, though. And maybe they seem to have less than you, and yet they're more, quote, successful by whatever standard. And maybe while you believe that's true, they think you're more successful than them. And both people can be jealous of one another at the same time. I've seen it. This is not unusual. Whole books, whole movies, right? About this. That happens. And that's why a lot of people, as my good friend Joey taught me, hate success because success really judges them. They just hate they'll do anything to make things unsuccessful. I know a whole group of people on the internet that do that. Actually, I know lots of them, but I'm poking one in particular because it's appropriate. It's the correct thing to do, actually. People don't get better if all you do is like pat them on the head and comfort them all the time. So I'm not going to do that. Also, that would be dishonest. And I actually care about the truth, unlike those people in particular, but also anybody who talks about the truth and doesn't give negative signal, they don't care about the truth at all. They're just lying to themselves and using you to get away with it, by the way. That happens a lot with guilt. So what does this look like? This see others, their existence, the fact that they're here in reality with you and they're at least somewhat similar to you. What does that look like in the world? How does that, or how do we interact with that fact? Right. And so, because of this feeling of guilt, people often try to shift the responsibility. And to be fair, a lot of these people they weren't taught or formed, which is a better word, formed to be responsible. And if you weren't formed to be responsible, you probably don't understand responsibility very well. You're probably not really that familiar with it or knowledgeable of it. Like if you haven't participated in being responsible, then when somebody says that person's responsible for this, you might not be able to discern that because you don't know responsibility, because to know something is to participate with it. If no one's held you to account, no one's made you responsible and forced your responsibility upon you with consequences, then what does responsibility mean? Exactly. You won't know, actually. You won't actually know. And there are people like that, and there are a lot of them nowadays. A lot of them. That's how they're fooled. Who's responsible for Charlie Kirk's murder? If you don't know what responsibility looks like, it could just be a chain of logical connections, real or imagined. Like logic is logic. Logic doesn't care if something exists in material reality or is a good connection or a bad connection. Logic doesn't have those features, right? It doesn't have that ability. Rationality doesn't either. You know, I don't know what else to tell you. Reason maybe can lead you, you know, down the path of, oh, this is not a reasonable logical connection to make. This is not a rational way to think. Right. It's not the full picture. Right? It doesn't fix the problem. And these people weren't formed to be responsible. They don't know responsibility. They have to be told what responsibility is and is not, and who's responsible for what. And then it's easy to fool them into thinking, this Ukraine is responsible for, you know, being an aggressor against Russia. I mean, they weren't. They also shouldn't exist, but that's a different live stream. And so, maybe you feel bad about your identity, right? It doesn't fit or match or whatever. Maybe you just feel bad and you think it's about your identity because somebody like pointed you at that and you went, aha, it must be my identity. Look at all these other people with the same feeling about their identity. So I want everybody else in the whole world, whether I know them or not, to change how they speak about me when I'm not there. This is the pronoun debate. I mean, Jordan Peterson pointed this out, right? We love Dr. Peterson, right? He pointed this out. Pronouns are not something you're going to know that people are using with respect to you ever, unless they're speaking to you as if you're in the third person and not present, which is crazy. But that's what the fight is over. It should have been a big hint, by the way, to everybody. So for all the Johnny come latelys, the left left me. Oh, so good. You're still a leftist then. Well, that's good to know. Well, you caused this problem. You're still part of it, by the way. You can get out of it. The Nolan movie should show us that pretty clearly. Oh, all the leftists who said the left left me or whatever, or are claiming that claiming homelessness because all their friends got more radical or whatever. Yeah, they're the same ones that are causing it to step over the Odyssey. You guys are the ones that brought us here, and you haven't actually changed at all. You're still causing the same chaos you did that got us here. Thanks. Really appreciate that. Although, could you not? That'd be great. And all of this to fix my insecurity, my feelings about my identity, if that's even the problem, which it never is, but it never is, by the way. Never. Never. The bottom line is your identity is negotiated. And if you don't like it, you're causing yourself misery and no one else is responsible for that but you. You have to adopt your identity. You just have to adopt that negotiation. It's really not optional. Otherwise, all you're doing is causing misery to yourself and everybody around you forever. Don't do that. That's dumb. And this pattern is everywhere. Look for it. Most of these things people call gaslighting is just people shifting responsibility. Right? They're not saying this or that didn't happen, and sometimes they are, right? But they're saying things like, well, really, it's Elon Musk's responsibility to take care of the homeless because you could take care of all homelessness with just a few $1 billion. And it's like, well, A, that's nonsense. It's just mathematically incorrect, among other things. But because homelessness isn't a condition that you can buy your way out of. And a home is not a static thing. It's not like you buy a home and once that money is spent, you have a home forever. I mean, your home will decay. Don't get me started on all the things we have to do to this house all of a sudden because, well, the beavers created a problem. The mice created another problem. And now we have two problems that aren't related or seemingly aren't related, but they're all related, right? There's upkeep when you have a house. I had to mow today. Well, actually, to be fair, I had to mow a month ago. Between the waking up and it's 80 degrees and the having to go up north and see sick relatives and stuff. I didn't until today, so that was fun. Mower only almost stalled out 3 times, but I know how to deal with these things. That's part of the gaslighting. Telling you that certain people are responsible for certain things when in fact they're not. That's most gaslighting is that. It's a shift in responsibility. Right? Because Elon Musk doesn't feel any guilt for the homeless people. And that makes me angry. He should be held to account. See how they're using the guilt? I didn't think about that, did you? Yeah. They're not reacting to the guilt appropriately. We need to do something about that. It's not just all about you. It's about where that guilt is located and what mitigations have or haven't been done to that guilt. What mediation has or has not occurred for that guilt. Who's to blame for these things? What should they do to fix them, to address them, to rid themselves and all of society, perhaps, of this problem? How do people deal with this when, say, it's not working out? Like, I mean, being angry is not necessarily working out. And there's two sort of common choices, right? One is you can choose to be around fewer people, right? Or further away from, like in a video game where you get to decide your interaction or any online, right? You get to decide your interaction when you don't like what you're hearing anymore. You don't have to keep the conversation going. You don't have to. You can just shut it off, right? You don't like what you're hearing from Tucker Carlson. You can just click the video off. It's not a problem. You'll never hear from him again if you don't want to, right? Or at least not on that topic. It's great. Fantastic. Right? Just further away. right? All my interactions are in a video game, like there's rules, whatever. Sure. Or, or you can be around people that are the same as you or worse than you, right? Or subsequently worse and worse people. Um, or at least people know better than you, right? Because then you feel like there's no judgment. We're all slacker losers here. We're all incels together. We're all angry divorced men. It's fine. We're all alcoholics hanging out. But you're just enabling equality, right? And equality always seeks the lowest common denominator. I knew when I was in math class that there was a reason why I was going to remember that forever. And I have. I don't know why, but here it is. This is the reason. It's amazing. It really is. Weird things happen to me. So you're enabling this quality or this feeling superior to the group that you're in. Maybe they're worse than you, right? And not reading that as judgment because it's not directed at you. You're the one doing the judging, right? And so after all, it's like the water you swim in, you're the fish, right? You're like, I'm the king fish. I get to judge everybody else, but I don't feel judged because I'm the king. Fair enough. I mean, there's a lot of stuff about the king. I'm watching a special on it's an old BBC documentary actually, on beheading of Charles I. And I mean, their attempt to make Parliament look like they're not pure evil is admirable, but like not working, man. Not working at all. And the argument is, yeah, you can't judge the king. And the king was right about that, by the way. But that's another different live stream. Also, see the history videos from Adam and I can point out why that was a bad thing and destroyed the world. And thanks, England, for destroying the world. Really appreciate it. Wish you wouldn't, though. Or alternatively, you could be mad at the creator, of course. Gnosticism to the rescue. Bang, you're saved from your guilt. It's all the bad God's fault and not a problem. Or you can adopt any other of these, heretical pagan Gnostic cults that are out there. Doesn't really matter. The more control you put to yourself, right, the less judgment you have to worry about because after all, you read it in the book. It's great. And you read whatever you want in any book you want. If the postmoderns were right, you can do that. Also, don't do that. That's really dumb and destroys the world. And kind of live here, so if you could just not destroy the world, that'd be great. What you'll notice, however, is judgment isn't optional. You can't actually remove it from the world. You can try. It kind of looks like you succeed, but ultimately, it's still there. It doesn't go away. Your feelings don't go away because you don't want to feel them anymore. Contrary to, we'll say, the popular belief of Stoicism, that ain't how it works. If you try, entropy will get you. Right? You have to constantly fight against this entropy. If you try to remove something that's in the world from the world, all you're doing is ignoring it for yourself, and it's eating you anyway. And the nihilism will win for sure. Meaning crisis, anyone? You're disconnected from the world. You don't have that sense of the qualities of the relationships of the world, so you can't revivify them. So you fall into the meaning crisis. The intimacy crisis and the meaning crisis are linked in that way. And hopefully you can see how relevance realization is at play here. And I'll kind of leave that to the audience here to ponder. How relevance realization, not understanding there are basic, let's say, non-optional components of the universe that are there, whether we want them to be or not, that we have to deal with, right up to and including killing and murder, right? Those are two separate things. And like maybe Dr. Vervaeke would like to believe, those are actually two separate things. They need to be dealt with separately. Super important, by the way. It's discernment matters, right? You have to think about these things. You can't just construct worlds without them. And if people can't realize them for whatever reason, maybe they weren't formed responsibly, right? They weren't formed with a sense of responsibility. Well, That's great. Maybe that puts them in the margin or a margin or something. Not too important. What's important is that we find a way to integrate them. So we're not no one's talking about integration because all the materialists dissecting the world are not talking about integration or their idea of integration is something like benign evangelicalism or ecumenism or something. Uh, just garbage, complete garbage. I've been swamped with evangelism, as Sally Joe likes to call it, which I did respond with, and that was pretty funny on Twitter. Um, it sounds like such drivel and nonsense, and it so clearly doesn't answer a question or lead to a path or a solution to anything. It's just this idea that well, this is going to get resolved later anyway, or you don't have to be in the world, right? But being in the world is being in reality. It's being in the pre-created order. It means you are judged all the time in the here and now, like not just at the end. Like you're judged here and now too, and that actually matters, right? And you're judged all the time in all kinds of ways, and not just by people. And that guilt, that signal is there, and you need to know what to do about it. You need to be able to discern internal from external and real from imagined guilt. Well, you need to do that with everything, right? Real from imagined is a big deal right now. Almost nobody can discern real from imagined. Almost nobody now. We're in the age where people don't know the difference at all. They don't know where they end and other things begin, and therefore they don't know where their imagination ends and reality begins. And that ridiculous. I mean, I had somebody recently, yeah, because occasionally I just can't. Like I can't. There's certain things I can't leave. Like I can't leave that. Right. I can't let that slide. I just can't. I feel it's my duty as a human being to not let that slide. Will I be effective? I don't care. I will never know how effective I am online, right? Because you have a big audience, you don't know who's reading things, and you're not going to follow their lives anyway. So maybe it works in 10 years. Who knows? And basically, the person was saying, well, you mean people can be convicted from a grainy video? You think that's okay? And I had to point out to them, like, almost everybody in history was convicted without any video at all, any video evidence at all. Like, I can't even believe anybody said something that dumb. I mean, that's just dumb. Like, I don't know what else to say. That person is dumb. They're stupid. Should we allow stupid people to talk publicly? I don't think so, man. I mean, I'd shut Candace down tomorrow. And granted, she did some good work in the beginning and she was totally right about a bunch of stuff in the beginning. But at some point, she went off the rails. I don't know why. I don't know how. I don't care. Right? At the point where she go off the rails, we pull the plug. Sorry. It's a good thing. You save people from themselves and you save them from pushing others over the edge. Like the fake news virus scamdemic did, which we still haven't dealt with. I'm not going to stream on that for sure. I'm getting kind of tired of the fact that still nobody, even the people who, they're all oddly leftists, and leftists all never do anything effectively, unfortunately. I like to think they do, or the things they do are narcissistic at best, maybe. Nobody wants to have that conversation yet. Nobody's ready to like put their foot down and say, no, absolutely no. Like we need to deal with the after effects of this. Forget about holding people accountable. That ship has sailed, and unless you're willing to go full Puritan on their ass, which by the way you should do. Like that's actually the Puritans were right about some things, and that was one of them. And go extrajudicial, which actually again you should do. Right, these are extrajudicial issues after all. We don't need trials for public statements. Like, did you make the following public statement? And then the judge gets to decide. No, we don't need a judge for a public statement that's on video. You don't need that. It's ridiculous. It's a waste of time. Just paying lawyers to be more scumbags in other areas. Don't need that. And that's the thing. You're getting judged all the time in all kinds of ways, not just by people. After all, in order for you to be seen by anybody at all, technically, I'm not this scientifically, you can use your stupid materialist frame all day long. It's fine. You must be judged to be apart from other things. Like in order for you to be a person at all, like you have to be judged to be that thing. And people get that wrong for sure. Everybody gets things wrong. That's not an interesting critique. It's not even a critique. It's just revealing your own ignorance, right? When you quote critique like that, you're just kind of admitting you're really stupid and maybe you should shut up. And you're clearly not smart enough even to shut up, which is really, really dumb, by the way. But seeing a lot of that lately, especially online. Those two operations are inseparable. I can't judge you as not me or not background or not nature or not a rock or not a tree, right? Once I see you, I have to make that judgment. I have to make other judgments too. So you're not removing judgment from the world. That's not happening. You must be judged to be separate and apart and to have any kind of existence in the mind of another creature or in your interactions with nature. You feel judgment, whether you integrate it or not, because it's there. And if you aren't imagining it, which again, you could be doing, people imagine things all the time, then you know it. You participate with it. And because you participate with it, you truly know it. Now, you can always be mistaken because of your imagination. That's why you need rough and tumble play, to Peterson's point, although that's actually just play. I don't know why they had the rough and tumble, but they do. It's fine. Vervaeke calls it serious play because scientists always modify things. They can't just use regular words. They've got to create jargon so they feel wicked smart. It's kind of pointless. But yeah, if you didn't play outside as a kid with other kids, the odds that you understand your imagination are vanishingly small. And if you had something wrong with you, maybe you were socially awkward or your parents sucked and kept you inside, or maybe you had a problem. A lot of people with hearing problems end up very isolated and more in their imagination, and then they're more prone to feeling guilt for things they aren't involved in. But these things happen. Isolated people, whatever their isolation is, they tend to feel more guilt because they know they're not participating correctly with the world. And fair enough. Right? That doesn't mean you can't fix it, though. You can. So, what are we to do about the guilt we feel? The judgment that exists because we are in a created order that was, again, here first and is bigger than us. I do have to say these things. I promise you, you can just tell there are people out there that don't. They can't think it through for themselves, and no one's had the kindness to lay it out for them. And the answer is you have to admit you're in a created order that was here first and it's bigger than you, right? And so you're subject to it. Yeah, you're a subject of it. Yeah, absolutely. And then submit. Uh, Sorry, like, what are you going to do? Say, not today, gravity. No, son, you will not rise in the east. I command you to rise in the north. Like, what are we thinking about here? Like, are we just going, oh, those are obvious and banal? They're not, apparently. They're really not. That didn't happen. They should be obvious, but they're not. Humility, once you realize it, should follow immediately. As Dr. Peterson says, you aren't all you could be. And that is really good news, right? Because what it means is that you can change and become better than you are now. Whatever ails you, whatever problems you have can be resolved because you can get bigger than them. You can have a future version of you that can bear those burdens, that can sweep away those problems. That's possible. That's all possible. In other words, be better. The world needs you. You want to make the world better? All you have to do is be better. That's it. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. People make this hard. It's not hard. It doesn't have to be hard. If you want to feel special because you did something hard, go to the gym. Don't make the world hard. There's nothing hard about the world. All these people you think were stupid because they lived in the past and didn't have air conditioning and electricity and whatever, they all were fine. They did better than you. It's not hard. It can't be hard. They didn't have these tools. They didn't have computers. They have the internet. It can't require any of those things. Almost everybody throughout human history did it without any of those things at all. So clearly, you have all those things and you're not able to deal with it. That's I know where the problem is, and it ain't in the past. In other words, what I'm trying to tell you is that if you take guilt as a positive signal because it indicates a fall towards entropy or something, then you only have the issue of discernment to allow for optimal improvement. People talk about self-improvement. Self-improvement towards what? You need a telos, a goal, a purpose. You need those things. Meaning crisis. You need that. But you also need the discernment to get that, right? Is the guilt real? Is it justified? Did it come from an outside reliable force or from a reliable indicator inside you? These are not easy questions, but actually there's fewer questions than before and they're resolvable. It's a smaller set of skills. It's a set of skills that you can cultivate for yourself, right? So that's actually an easier problem to solve, especially than dealing with each guilt thing that comes along one at a time. But in order to do that, you need outside assistance. I mean, you just don't have a good perspective on yourself. You can't see behind your eyes. You can't see around your eyes. I don't know what else to. This should be easy. Again, people just think, "Oh, I've seen a glimpse of myself, or I can have a mirror, and therefore," and it's like, well, maybe, but you're never going to get the full picture. And distributed cognition is going to be smarter than you. But if you want to stay trapped in your head, I don't think this self transcendence thing is even a viable option. But if you do, there's no hope for you. I don't know why you're here. Go do something else. And outside assistance is how you get a better read on the situation. Of course, someone outside can not only help you see if you are responsible or just imagining it, right? Or worrying. That's one way to one word to use. They can help you see how you're responsible. In what way? Maybe you feel I'm responsible for something. I didn't do something. What was it? And it could be something real simple. Right? A lot of people come back from their parents' house from visiting or whatever, or their parents have just visited and they don't know why. And it turns out they just didn't say goodbye. Or they didn't say I love you. And they didn't notice that they didn't do that. And somebody was there and they noticed and said, or they asked them the question, even somebody who wasn't there. Did you say goodbye? Did you tell your mother you loved her? Because if you didn't, you might feel guilty about that correctly and not be able to identify it for yourself. It's the water you swim in, guys. Like, you really do need outside help. You can't get better by yourself. That's nonsense garbage. Anybody who tells you that is full of shit. They're a liar. They may not know that they're lying. I don't care. They're still lying. Like, truth matters. Truth doesn't care about your intent. It's not. It doesn't do that. It does not function. And it can also help you to mitigate the damage. Oh, maybe you call your mother up and say, "Ah, Mom, I meant to say goodbye and I love you and I forgot and I feel bad." Good. It's amazing. It's amazing. I don't know if you guys know this. A lot of people don't know this. Fair enough. When you mitigate the guilt, when you do something like that, when you've, forgotten to say goodbye and tell somebody, you care about them or whatever, and then you do it, that actually fixes it. Like, boom. It's amazing. It works. It's like, oh, well, there you go. Right? The positive signal comes. So if you treat guilt as a positive signal that you've made a mistake for sure, And, again, you've discerned it's not imaginary because it could be, because that happens, right? And then you mediate that, uh, you get a positive signal back that says, yeah, you're set, you're good to go, right? And but in order to do that, you need people you can confide in about your feelings of guilt. Otherwise, they'll eat you alive. That guilt will degrade you. It will make you a lesser creature. It will drag you down. It will manifest as random anger, unhappiness, depression, rage, all kinds of things. All kinds of things. It'll cause you to push relationships away unconsciously because you'll be like, oh, I feel guilty every time I talk to these people, so I should push them away. I mean, I'm still going through that now. It's probably not going to resolve. Someone's kind of ready to die first, but it's not my fault. There's not much I can do. Uh, the main reason why people suffer from guilt, which again can cause anxiety, especially through FOMO, fear of missing out, right, is that they cannot get any higher authority to let them off the hook. Or maybe a higher authority that they trust, that they can confide in, right? And this is important, especially in a world of disbelief or distrust, skepticism about the hierarchy. Who do I go to? Who should I share this stuff with that won't manipulate me into becoming someone who shoots people? Because that's happening right now. Flattening the world has had consequences. They're not good consequences. And this might be the most important one. Because there's really no way out if you don't have an authority that you trust over you to help you with things like this. Not only this, but also this. And there's no way out because you trapped yourself in your own feelings. If you try to self-help your way out of that, you're still going to be trapped in your own feelings. A lot of this self-help stuff, so if you actually kind of look, there's some numbers out there actually. I've seen them. I don't make this stuff up. I actually do research. I know almost everybody on the internet doesn't do any. You can kind of tell, like if you're the guy who researches things and you kind of tell who doesn't, because that's how that works. Almost nobody in the internet researches anything. But if you look real closely at the numbers, you're going to realize there's an awful lot of self-help books out there, and they sell pretty damn well. And there's an awful lot of people going to like therapy and stuff, and it seems to be pretty popular. And everything's getting worse. Like that correlation is there. The more self-help, the worse things get. Not just for yourself, like not for those people specifically, also for those people specifically on average. Overwhelmingly, by the way, right? But for society in general, it's a weird coincidence. This is not a cost of tea in China situation. This is a direct correlation between things that are definitely linked, that we know are linked and experimentally have proven are linked. So I don't know. You might want to think about that one. All this self-help nonsense is making everything worse because it flattens the world and it traps you in your own feelings. Because if you think you can help yourself, you're just subject to your own desires and whims. That the ones you had before. So maybe somebody telling you something from the outside. It's not to say that isn't helpful in certain situations, but you can't rely on it, and you can't use only that. And by the way, it has a shelf life. I love Dr. Peterson, but he's off on his quest to wrestle with God. Mostly for himself through distributed cognition, whatever you want to call it, his consciousness Congress, as Pastor Paul Van de Clay might say. Whatever, don't care. Hello, Dr. Peterson. Remember when you teach classes to people? And if you want a flavor for that, by the way, Ryan Reeves is Peterson only for history, church history, Tolkien and Lewis. Tolkien and Lewis stuff is fantastic. I'm getting through it now, and it's just great, unbelievably good. I love Ryan Reeves. He's the best. Love him. Fantastic. Hope to finish all his stuff. I will within the next couple of weeks, probably. It's slow going. It's hard to put all this stuff in your brain at once. The thing is, though, once you have a proper orientation to the source of your guilt, in other words, you kind of understand what thing you were not being responsible enough about, or what thing you didn't take any responsibility for, or you were responsible for it and you screwed up, because that's gonna happen to you. It happens to everybody. It happens all the time, actually. It's not that big a deal, right? Because you can do something about it, right? You can do something to mediate or mitigate that mistake you made. That guilt that you feel can be mitigated by an action, right? Otherwise, it will come back. That error in the world in which you live, by the way, this is the water you swim in. If you make an error, it affects the world because you happen to be in the world. I don't know, like, why this is confusing. This is very confusing, people. I promise you, very confusing, people. Listen to how they talk about the world, right? Like, oh, you do you, man. It's like, what? No, excuse me, no. I don't, no, not you do you. We occupy the same space, jerk off. That means your actions have consequences for everybody around you and me. Now, they may be attenuated and I may not be too bothered by them ultimately, but the people closer to you might, or ultimately, that may have knock-on effects that reverberate or resonate through society and cause a bunch of problems. I don't know. Well, actually, I'm lying. I totally know. Like this, it's like, you can map this in a simulation on a computer. Actually, ain't that hard, guys. Ain't that all these people and their freaking climate models? Hey, there's way easier models that they used to do about human behavior. Some of it using some advanced game theory stuff, which is relatively accurate at a certain layer of analysis if done carefully. Blah blah blah. I got news. There are lots of people who've done these things, myself included, by the way. Yeah, it's not a good picture for the do whatever you want crowd. No, you do you. No, we're actually all living in the same place, and where you live, where others live, your actions affect all that. And maybe not right away, which is where people get confused. Well, if I do drugs right now, it's not a big deal. Well, yeah, but you die in your 40s, right? You die in your mid 40s. I read a whole article about this. Well, article is probably about 12 years old now. I read a whole article about this in the freaking Guardian of all places. I was doing some research. I'm not telling that story. It's a terrible story. I was doing some, so there's this British guy. He's like, I don't know, 48 or something. I think I looked it up. He's 48 at the time I wrote the article. He's like, yo, my friends are dying because they're all drug addicts. They all did, coke on the weekends. Okay, fair enough. Now they're all dead. Yeah, well, maybe that was a stupid idea, and now you're sad and lonely. Oops. But you do you, right? Like, I guess it doesn't really affect people, unless you read a whole article about it in the Guardian. And that's the thing. Like, you have to do something to enact proper healing once a rift has been opened, right? Once a problem has occurred, even if that's just the withdrawal of your attention from something that needed your attention. And maybe you can't fix it, we'll say, but you can do something to counterbalance the effect in some sense. Maybe not directly, but again, these things have knock-on effects. There's second order effects. They have reverberations through time, right? And so maybe if you do 2 points of damage, you can do 2 points of healing or something, right? To use the video game analogy, because why the hell not? People seem to understand that, which just makes me cry because really, it's terrible. And it's not just for you, although it may benefit you. It almost certainly will. You'll get that positive feedback from having done something to mediate your guilt, right? And it's not just for nature, and it's not just for others. It's for the world to be better in the future. A little bit of revivification goes a long way, especially down the road. Just pick up that one piece of trash. And the thing is, the patterns here should be clear. Guilt causes things like anxiety and anger and resentment. And it can be caused purely by your imagination or by an actual transgression in the world. You could feel guilty about the wrong thing or diagnose an incorrect mistake. You think you made one mistake, you actually made this other mistake, you don't even notice. You need humility. You need help. You need outside help. You need a way to be forgiven from something with authority, right? Something higher, something above you. And then ultimately to fix the wrong as best as you are able, indirectly if required, right? To assuage your guilt. And what you see in the world is people not doing that, and they're projecting their guilt, and they're using perception of people that should be guilty who maybe are not, or maybe are guilty or guilty of something, but not that. Like I can think of plenty of things I find, Elon Musk guilty of. Just none of the things he's being accused of. Fair enough. But you can't try to hold people accountable for those things yourself because you're not there. And if you have an improper idea of hierarchy, you don't like hierarchy. See, this is the trick of socialism, which of course I have a video about that, right? This is the trick of socialism. Well, that shouldn't be that way. Okay, well, who are you going to designate to fix it? And oh, by the way, if we're all equal, you can't designate anybody, and neither can anyone else. It's like, oh, well, democracy, vote for it. It's like, what? Democracy is evil. The ancient Greeks were pretty clear about this. They know why. They did all the experiments, like these science idiots. Oh, democracy. I'm like, you're not a scientist. You don't believe in science at all. You don't believe in experimentation. You don't believe in actually taking serious the results of an experiment at all if you think democracy is a good thing. Like, you clearly not. The ancient Greeks wrote about democracy and why it's bad and how it fails. It's in book 8, right in the middle of book 8 of the freaking Republic. I don't take any of these people seriously. I think probably they have poor reading comprehension, and they were like elevated up in a structure that maybe they don't belong. It's too dumb. Too dumb. Sorry, too dumb. Too dumb. Who are you going to designate? How are you going to designate this person? You've already destroyed the hierarchy, or you're skeptical of it. But now you want somebody to do something about Elon Musk. Well, guess what, buddy? You did this. You can't blame Elon Musk for that. You kind of let him become a trillionaire, and now it's too late. Or I guess he's only a billionaire today, or something. Some Twittery thing I saw. People joking about, trolling about, people by people I mean Elon was trolling about the fact that he's not a trillionaire. I don't know. It's a pretty funny guy, so whatever. It's a trap. Like, yeah, you don't like hierarchy, you don't want a deep hierarchy, but then you want somebody to hold other people responsible. Well, I got news for you. You can't have both. You can pick one. And if it's really all just you anyway, it doesn't matter who holds who responsible for what, but they'll happily take the power and use you to get it. And by use you, I mean they'll turn you into a Manchurian candidate to shoot somebody if they have to. And they've done it. And that's some of what's going on is that for sure. Is it, we'll say, like a known group of, and no, it doesn't have to be. The people who are smart at the CIA and in intelligence, they don't have to set up direct things. Like, look at how World War I started. Okay. You have a bunch of people, right, who are upset because they don't want to be under a king. And like the age of kings is sort of coming to an end at this period. Like, I get that, right? This is the back end of the age of kings. Sure. Also the biggest mistake ever that we could have possibly made as a society, as a culture, as a people. So whatever, we're on the back end of that. I get that. That cycle's there. There's really nothing I can do about it. But what's happening in the background, and if you study the history, you'll find this out. All the anarchist groups, because anarchy's big back then, big in the U.S., bombs going off in every country. The U.S. had so many bombings in the late 1800s, early 1900s. The anarchists are getting funded and having whisper campaigns by all kinds of organized groups. All kinds. All with different goals, by the way, slightly different goals. Maybe the best ultimate. They all have the same ultimate goal, which is them in charge. So I guess that's the same goal. Except, of course, only one of them can be in charge, and so they're really in they have competing goals. Uh, but what they don't have competing is competing means. In order for you to be in charge, no matter who you are, right? No matter which group you are, you need a person in charge to be destabilized, either shot or sent into exile or made to seem foolish or insane or whatever. There's a number of methods, right? So all these groups that want to get control, and some of them want, national control for the good of their country, and there's more than one of those groups. Oops, right? And then others of them are Russia, you know. Others of them are, we'll say, uh, former places within the Holy Roman Empire that would just assume spark a war and shake things up to cause things to happen. And not necessarily just quote Germany, by the way, but because the all those different regions. So these guys are being funded, but they're not just funding one group because they're anarchists. Anarchists don't really have groups. I mean, they do because you have to, but they don't. There's not like the United Front of Anarchists. That doesn't exist. So they're funding all kinds of groups with very small amounts, relatively small amounts of money, although they have large budgets. And eventually, some retard and in the case of the shooting of Franz Ferdinand, that's, that's the wackiest story you're ever gonna hear. I don't know why people don't just make that movie over and over again. It's hysterically funny. They go to bomb him, it doesn't work. Happens to have a gun, tries to shoot him, can't get close enough, goes to a cafe. I think they changed. Did they change they might have changed the route or something. The you know Ferdinand goes past the cafe or something. He comes rushing out, shoots, and gets lucky. It's like, what is this nonsense? Funded by 3 different groups, at least that we know of that are documented. So you don't need to plan it out. You don't need a CIA or an NSA pulling the strings or Mossad or whatever. You don't need that. You don't need anything like that. China knows this. They know how to destabilize countries. Russia knows how to destabilize countries. I'm not implying that either is destabilizing ours, although China definitely is, by the way. Ukraine is too, by the way, some of which might be Russians, although I kind of doubt it. I think they're maybe former Russians about to be dead. Former Russians, hopefully that just end that war. Russia can just win and get rid of Ukraine once for all. It's nothing but trouble. Bad plan. Just make it Russia, please. Putin should defend himself against the poison of the West. Absolutely. Rome lives with him. I'm fine with that. Whatever. Just no more war, please. Let's cut it out. So you can see how these things work, how moving the guilt around works. And what do? They shoot the one guy who would have given them the reforms and moved them closer to their goals. And they didn't know that because they were busy assigning guilt to the king and the prince for no reason. Killed millions of people. Good job. Good freaking job. That's how you weaponize guilt. People don't understand who's guilty of what. Easy. It's easy to move them. And, look, there's some number of people, and it's probably not an insignificant percentage, who will never be able to know that, which is why you can't make things equal. You can't allow them to be on the internet spewing crazy conspiracy theories. Candace's conspiracy theories might be bad. I might agree. Although, again, up until recently, until this last thing, she did great work. Actual great work. 100% nailed everything. There's crazier out there. And they've been out there. And now they've got money and audience. In other words, 2 forms of power. Very, very dangerous. They can just tell you who to blame. Gerard has a point about the scapegoat. And there's a point to the scapegoat not being optional. But man, you better pick the right freaking scapegoat. And you better be scapegoating the right thing. And that does not work the way you think it does. And someday, I'll get somebody on to talk to me about Gerard. And there'll be some learning time there. All right, let me get to the comments. Anselman. All right, what is this? Pardon me. T.S. Eliot has powerful words in Little Gidding about the gifts reserved for age, the awareness of things ill done and done to others harm, which once you took for exercise of, I assume that of virtue, I assume is what you meant there. Yeah, virtue. Well, T.S. Eliot's pretty smart. No one reads him anymore. And if they wouldn't understand him because people are not at the point where they can read poetry. And so while I agree that stories and poetry and things like that are useful, they're not useful enough for enough people to make a difference. And this is where I have my disagreement with, oh, shoot, what did I call them on Twitter? I had this great phrase. They're the pseudo intellectual lit crit crew. That's what they are. They're the pseudo intellectual lit crit crew. Oh my goodness. Everyone's like, witch burnings are bad. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm seeing some possibilities here to solve some real problems real quick and real well. Anselman, rending pain of reenactment of all that you have done and been. Age and more time for reflection make a good earthly purgatory. Yeah, well, perhaps. Navigating your way through the world requires a balance of what is permissible, less than perfect behavior when you are under constraints of duty. Well, yeah, duty's another thing. I'll probably have to do a live stream about duty. Nobody understands that concept even a little bit anymore, unless you've been in the military. That's about it. And what is absolutely wrong and you must suffer for refusing to do. Yes, if necessary. Some have a sense of cosmic responsibility. Yes. Yeah, they do. Well, I mean, you have a cosmic responsibility, right? It's just a tiny one. I have fallen into that at times. You cannot manage everything in your situation. Yeah, well, and there are times when you can manage more and you don't, right? And that also causes guilt. Right? Never try to get somebody to perfectly understand you. It's futile. Yeah, well, yeah, and you, because we live in this video game reality, people don't believe that because they perfectly understand the video game. Which I'm sorry, but like that's a real phenomenon that's really causing a real lot of problems for a real large number of people. I was once at a mass where we had a relic of King Charles I, a lock of his hair. Oh, wow. Wow. The more I learn about that BBC documentary, there's 3 parts to it. I got to finish the 3rd part. And I will. I will, partly because, oh my God, that woman's eyes are amazing. Like magical eyes. He's officially King Charles the Martyr. Yes. Yes. Evangelicats. Yes. Evangelical cats? No, evangelicats. I think Sally said evangelicats. It's, T.S. Eliot again. Oh, must we? Excessive scrupulosity can be a spiritual problem. Yeah, well, lots of things can be a spiritual problem. I feel guilty. I've taken up all the chat and maybe scared people off. I don't think so, sir. I think people are wimps. And we just run into this problem all the time in Awakening from Meaning Crisis Discord. People be like, you and Manuel take up all the action. We're like, guys, there's like 8 voice chat channels on this freaking server. Just go to a different one. We were here first. We were talking. You came in and interrupted us. We graciously and politely allowed you into a conversation. In fact, saying, hey, what would you like to talk about? Like, really graciously, right? Good hosts. And you're bitching that we're the ones doing all the talking. Well, go to the other channel and talk away. And every once in a while, someone would do that. And of course, they're boring and no one wants to hear anything they say. And people would come to our channel instead. Sorry, because they wanted equal time. And I'm like, but people are not equal. They don't have an equal number of things to say at all, or an equal quality of things to say at all. And I just don't want to hear most people talk ever. Look at the internet. That's what we're suffering from. You get to hear most people talk. Most people suck at talking. And if people talk long enough, they turn into Candace Owens. And then, it's bad. If somebody would like to join me to keep the stream sort of hopping, because I can only go so long by myself, as most people, although I can go longer than most. Um, See how I feel today. I actually don't know. I was out mowing, and then I had to break down the beaver thing. The beavers are building the Roman Colosseum on the other end of my pond, apparently, and that's a problem. I have water infiltration under the house. It's causing all kinds of issues. It's a mess. It's a total mess. I should pin that link. Sometimes I actually remember how to be a competent YouTuber. It happens occasionally. Um, yeah, feel free to jump in. We don't have to talk about guilt, although I don't want to get too far afield if we can avoid it. I know I got some message somewhere. Does anybody have any questions in the chat, or not in the chat? Of course, you can jump in. Um, so, oh yeah, I get an issuance from my buddy Castle, who apparently will not be joining me. Um, oh no, that terrible, terrible news from Castle. But yeah, the stream will go well. Do not worry, my friend. Go take care of your family stuff. Oh, awful. I almost had Castle. I need Castle back. I miss Castle. Damn it, he's so much fun. And he's so smart. And it's easier for me to like drink tea when I have somebody else that can talk while I drink. And I know Christopher is probably busy because he's doing stuff. I don't know why. I don't know what these people doing stuff is. Friday night, man. Be relaxing with some tea. Drink some tea, relax, do some pirate live stream stuff with me. Understand guilt, talk about these things, kind of quote T.S. Eliot as Anselman's doing. Ansem, it's not that we don't have breakfast in bed and we don't have toast. It's the way we speak, which is correctly. I'm just saying. The freaking UK people, they don't know how to English. We have perfected, actually, no word of a lie. Apparently on Ocracoke Island, although I haven't run into the natives, I've been there a couple times. I haven't run into the natives. They speak closer to 1600s English than anyone else in the world because they were isolated for so long. Those little barrier islands, we call them the Outer Banks. Yeah, they still have little populations here and there that speak the ye king's English from back in the day. Why is my costume falling apart here? I thought I had fixed it before I went on, but apparently it's a mess and it is a complete disaster. It must have fallen down. There's a whole magic to getting the stuff to work. A lot of work goes into this. You get a Mount Polly up here, thanks to Castle. We get the suspenders, you get the shirt, you gotta put on the hat. It's a lot of work to get ready for these live streams. And so I appreciate really that anybody watches. It's amazing. Love it. But I would like more engagement, more questions in the live chat, more people showing up. More suggestions about what to talk about next. A few people do that. Every once in a while I get somebody who's got a topic that I think I can handle. And then I actually do a live stream on it because I can. Or recorded video. I got a couple recordeds coming. I got the grand slides that's coming. Recorded something else. Shoot, I don't remember what it is. Recorded something else that I think is fully edited. We're gonna release a dog-headed book evaluation. Just to see if we can get some dog-headed book sales going because we really haven't had any of those. But that'll be coming out. That's a 2-year-old video recorded 2 years ago with Sally. Just I knew it wasn't the right time to release it. So I hope now is the right time to release it. We'll find out. I think, yeah, there's always a problem knowing what's topical and what to release when, and do you have enough subscribers? Are people going to watch this stuff? How do you attract them? It's all thumbnails and titles, and what other marketing do you do? We got a bunch of shorts we could make. but I don't want to use up a lot of time on that if it's not going to work. So we might do some more shorts experiments. We've done them in the past. I might do some more just to drum up some more attention for the channel. Where do you post links? What do you know? Hopefully, everybody watching is telling all their friends and their enemies to also watch. Trying to think what else I have. I got a couple of topics that I know I'm going to do. But yeah, the next big thing is going to be the next big thing is definitely going to be the slides. All the early slides, they're all redone. I did them all in one video. I don't even know how long that video is because I don't check. I like to watch myself. So the YouTubers all know this. Don't watch your own videos. Don't watch yourself. It's terrible. Um yeah, I know I don't know what I'm gonna do next week, next Friday. But as far as I know, we're doing live streams. I mean, I got some family stuff, so at any minute things could get canceled due to emergency trips or whatever. Hopefully that won't happen, but I mean, it's inevitable. At some point it's gonna happen. So it's happened before. It'll happen again. It's always good to keep in touch with the family so you don't feel guilty in case something happens and you didn't get to say goodbye or whatever, right? So it always plays into guilt. You wanna meet people with as much sort of connection as you can, right? With as much intimacy as you can. Told this story before. I had a girlfriend was not, yeah, she's just one of these people who's weird, like not a bad person or anything like that, but just always like friendly and nice. And one day I was like, why is it? Like, what is it that keeps me engaged with this person and happy to be around her, because it's not so clear, right? And she was actually adjacent to the hippies I used to live with, so she knew all of them. So that's not a feather in your cap necessarily. And I figured it out, right? I figured it out. One day I figured out, oh, she always picks up the conversation where it was last left. And not like exactly what was last, but if you were talking about a problem that you had, she would remember that. And the next time she saw you, she would ask you about that problem every time. And I was like, that's such a simple thing. And then I said, like, well, I can do that. It's like, no, I'm not claiming I'm super good at it, but I pull it off occasionally. Right? It's like, yeah, there's these little things about how you connect with people, how you leave your conversations when you're done, how you enter your conversations, and that make you more likable and make you more memorable and make people want to be like around you more or your friend or whatever. And a lot of that is just politeness. And someday I'll get back to working on the manners book, which I haven't touched. I touched it about 2 months ago, but I haven't touched. I have a lot of work to do. I kind of, to be fair to myself, I thought other people were gonna do certain things, and that didn't happen, and that's fine. That's, it's still my book. I'm responsible for it. Uh, I won't be the one finishing it or editing it or anything, but, like, it's my project. I gotta, you know, pony up on that. Politeness is huge, and the loss of politeness has just completely wrecked our culture, like, completely. Like, you don't really have a culture if you don't have politeness. And it doesn't have to be universal throughout your culture for it, right? But you have to have those the problem is not that we have different standards. We always had different standards, like north to south, even, right? In the Midwest, forget it, Midwest is crazy. Um, and the West Coast kind of maybe had a standard or two once. I don't know. It doesn't seem that way, but whatever. Um, but you have to have standards. And we've moved to a space of no standards, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're running big companies or able to raise lots of money. If you just want to look like the everyday guy, you just wear your black turtleneck and you're fine, or your stupid gray hoodie, and you can be a billionaire. No one cares. It's not. And no, it is a big deal. Hierarchy matters. Signaling the hierarchy is important. You can't just do away with these things like that. That's not good. Um, can't put the king on trial for treason. That doesn't make any sense. Uh, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that because we don't have a sense for the we'll call it the natural order, the natural pre-created order of the world, we're not able to sustain the culture. And so, and I've said this before in a previous video, actually, right? It's it's not a war for one culture versus the other. It's a war for a culture or no culture. And until people realize this, and all the people shouting culture war on the left, or we're voting Democrat yesterday and now claim not to be on the left, but I'm not convinced, guys. I'm not You sound like a leftist to me. You sound like the left you, which means you're still a leftist. A bunch of your leftist friends went crazy because the way you live makes people crazy. Didn't think about that, did you? But actually, that's clearly what's happening, and will continue to happen. The sheer inability of people to see, like, a simple point, like, Christopher Nolan makes mirrors. He doesn't make movies. His quote films are mirrors. That's what they are. They either mirror they're either a mirror for the strictly for the watcher, or they're a mirror of society, say a contradiction in society that he's just pointing out maybe because he thinks it's right. And if he wants to, like, if that feels pretentious to you, fair enough. But also, he's really good. Like, give the guy some credit. He's a great filmmaker in many, many ways. But because of what he's doing, I think he has a deficit. But the deficit is because of what he's doing. It was interesting too because Critical Drinkers, he released his review, The Odyssey. It's really good. It's exactly what I would expect. Although I didn't know what to expect before I listened to it. I'm not saying like, oh, I predicted exactly what. No, none of that. But it's exactly what I expected when I heard what he was saying. I'm like, oh, this totally makes sense. But then they did another one, which is a clip from one of his live streams. So they got a bunch of guys, including Sargon of Akkad was there, which is great. I love Carl Benjamin. And everybody had pretty much very similar, like, this movie was bad, but they all had different things about it they found bad. Some of them agreed on some of those things. But one of the interesting things that they were saying is all the actors felt, except for two of them, felt like generic versions of previous roles they had held. And somebody said, well, Nolan is well known for not telling his actors what to do. He says, well, you're the expert. You act it the way you want. And I went, well, yeah, that makes total sense. Like, and maybe that's sheer laziness and not genius on his part, but maybe it's genius on his part. If you want to make mirrors, that's a good way to do it. The audience is going to see the version of that actor that they want to see in the movie. It's one way to make you feel like you're part of the experience, but kick you out of the film so that you are a postmodern critiquer of the film. That would do it. I mean, it's only one method he's using, but that's definitely a method, and that would definitely have that consequence. Whether he does it for that reason or not, I don't know. I'm not in the guy's head. I don't really care because I'm a pragmatist and I care about what happens and not what people intend, because I don't pretend I can know people's intent. Young God, Tenant literally mirrored itself. Well, yeah, I mean, including the title. So, well, I mean, this is what I mean. Like, these people are sitting there talking about movies and saying, well, what's Christopher Nolan trying to tell us in the Odyssey? And I'm like, you actually can't be that stupid at this point. Like, it's not possible to be that stupid. Like, you have to be deliberately, like, dumbing yourself down to a single digit IQ. If you just, like, let's suppose you are really dumb and you've never heard of Christopher Nolan or something, or whatever, and you didn't do any research, maybe you could get to the point where you thought that there was a Christopher Nolan movie that was sending you some kind of coherent message. Right? Maybe you never heard him tell you otherwise, which he has done. He's quoted as saying, "Oh yeah, you see whatever you want to see because there's a contradiction in there that I show it to you." He said this. Not in those words, I'm paraphrasing, but also, like, he said this. Maybe you're too lazy to just fire up Notebook LM like I did and say, go search for sources, all the critiques of Nolan's movies, any of his interviews, blah, blah, blah. add them to this thing, and then just start asking questions about the movies, which are going to result in, yeah, a lot of mirrors, two types of mirrors, right? It's not going to do the postmodern point because it can't, but whatever. The postmodern point should be obvious. And if it's not, you probably don't understand postmodernism at all. And you probably should be talking about modernism either, because those two come at the same time, as Jonathan just said at the Symbolic World too, by the way, which I found interesting. I have the quote in case you're curious. Like he said that. I was there. Also, I was actually there physically. Um, I mean, the level of stupidity to not know this about Nolan, and the level of laziness to not freaking look it up and realize that people are talking about this for over 10 years about him. I don't know what to say about those people. I don't like those people. I don't think they're good people. I don't like lazy people. I don't like stupid people. And they seem both stupid and lazy somehow. I don't like it. And these are sort of the people and there's so many of, it's like, I couldn't list half of them because there seem to be hundreds of them at this point. These people that never critiqued a movie before in their lives, clearly, are now movie critics. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You're a pseudo intellectual lit crit person. And because the Odyssey is also literature, now you think you're a movie critic. You don't even understand the film genre. Like, what are you doing? I would question their ability to lit crit too. I mean, a lot of them just say dumb things. And I had this whole Twitter thread with this guy. I'm just sitting there, and every time he made a response to what I had said, I'm like, but this just proves my point. And I kept pointing it out to him very nicely, a lot of effort, right? Because I'm not talking to him. I'm talking to the audience that's following him and anybody that's reading the thread, basically, right? I know I'm not going to convince this guy. Online, the goal is never to convince the guy you're talking to. Who the hell cares? That person's lost already, right? That's just them's just facts. I mean, maybe you'll convince them, but the way you'll convince them is the same way you'll convince their audience. So what you do when you're talking in public is you try to convince the audience, not the person you're talking to. Screw them. They're done anyway. Like, either they're an ally or they're an enemy, right? But these people who are like suddenly movie critics, and it was one of the things I really liked about Father Eric's last live stream was he starts out basically saying, I'm not a movie critic. I'm not going to critique the movie, but here's what I saw and here's what I liked and here's what I didn't, sort of thing. That's fine. That's great. You're just giving your own opinions. Perfect. Right? Nothing wrong with that. But these people that are pretending like, well, I know how to critique a movie. And then they're not even talking about any of the aspects of the film. And they're trying to talk about story. And I'm like, well, you guys don't even know what story is. You don't have a definition of story. You don't know what a myth is. You don't have a definition of myth. You think you do, apparently, because you're yapping about it like you actually know something, when you clearly, pseudo-intellectuals, they just bother me. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. Just shut up. It's the easiest thing in the world. Easiest thing in the world, right? What is that saying? My mother used to say it all the time. It is better to close one's mouth and be thought a fool than to open it and remove all doubt. Yeah. And I try to follow that as best I can, and actually I do a pretty good job, ultimately. That's not true, Mark. Talk about all kinds of things. Yeah. Look at all the things I don't talk about. I have given 0 critiques on the Odyssey. 0. On the story, the myth, or the movie. Like, I haven't read it. Not gonna watch the movie. I've already seen all of Christopher Nolan's movies. It's called Inception. I saw The Prestige, and I saw Dark Knight. I saw Memento. I love Memento. Memento was great. They're all the same. It's the same film. You like Nolan, that's fine. He's a wonderful filmmaker. He does amazing things with some of his movies, for sure. But they're mirrors. And you can be entertained by a mirror. That's fine. I mean, you're making faces at yourself at some point, or you're making faces at the culture around you, or whatever, depending upon the movie. Dark Knight in particular, right? And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, I'm not gonna get into like, well, he moved the camera left when you should move it right, or he panned in, and I don't know anything about that. I know. I know photography, kind of. That's about it. I'm not gonna critique the music, although apparently the music's terrible too. The Critical Drinker crew was like, oh yeah, the music's awful. I had to close my ears and like block them. I was like, what? Really? That's not a usual critique you hear in a movie is the music's terrible. I mean, that happens for sure, but that's not common, right? Usually they do okay job with the music. Apparently not this one. And so, you kind of wonder what these people are critiquing and what is it that they experience. And then you find out when you look at a few of these Odyssey critiques, everyone saw a different movie. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's clear as day now. Like, people are arguing with me. I'm like, guys, I don't know what evidence you're looking at, but I'm just looking at the movie reviews and the fact that no two people seem to have seen the same film. I'm sorry. And maybe they agree on certain parts of what they saw, but actually they're all focused on different parts as like the most egregious parts or the best parts. I don't know what to tell you about what that means, but also like clearly it didn't convey a message. It didn't convey a coherent message from the director to the audience, right? And people are very very confused. Like, if you see something, you can and will for sure interpret it. Now, you may not interpret a message there, but there may be one even, and you may not interpret it, right? But if everybody that sees it, or even large numbers of people that see it, see different things, then it doesn't convey a message, right? It conveys any number of messages. And it could be so ambiguous that two people see the same scene and interpret it in completely conflicting ways. And if that's the case, and that's the case in the Odyssey for sure from the reviews, then I don't know what's going on, but it's not sending a message. Like, I'm sorry, right? Young God, everything is a test to see if it's well. No, that's not at all what. I think that's not specifically Nolan's not doing anything like that. Nolan likes to critique society and show you contradictions. He said this, like, it's not. I'm not revealing some secret magic that is known only to me. I'm not a forbidden knowledge guy. If there's forbidden knowledge, I'm going to forbid you from it. Don't worry. Um, no, I don't think his producers are. I don't. Look, man. I hate to break it to you. Those people are retarded too. Like, everybody thinks that these people up there are like really smart and doing deliberate. No, I worked for a company. I was a full-time employee at a few Fortune 500s, not for very long because everyone's stupid. This I was explaining this to Sarah the other day. I work for this company. I'm at this company, and they're gonna move their headquarters. They're building a skyscraper right by the train stop, and everything's kind of cool. Like, oh, okay, whatever. I work for the director, reports directly to VP. The VP of engineering knows me, right? Everybody knows me. They decide one day that they're going to buy the company that they split off from, 15 years before, or whatever the hell it was. And that was a company known to me because my father used to work there. He was head of documentation. It's called Computer Vision. So PTC, Parametric Technology Corporation, going to buy Computer Vision. Computer Vision was 3 months from bankruptcy. And I'm like, well, they're not going to buy them now. That would be really dumb. Like, that would be like a monumentally retarded mistake to make. Like, just like, there's dumb, and then there's buying a company before it's going bankrupt for no reason. They bought it before it went bankrupt. Okay. The net result of this, interestingly enough, was PTC had the number 2 most expensive service contract with Sun Microsystems. Okay. You know who had the number 1 most expensive service and maintenance contract with Sun Microsystems? Computer Vision. Well, you just bought them not in bankruptcy, which means you bought all their debt and all their contracts. And then they were like, oh no. So, in other words, they did zero due diligence. Like, you had to actually do none in order to make a mistake this bad. Like, nobody looked at this, nobody at all. Really, I was there. This actually happened the way I'm recounting it. So now they're in trouble because they actually can't afford that as much money as they had. I think they ended up taking out a bunch of loans. They did build their skyscraper like recently. So I worked there in the late 90s. They took 10 years to clear the debt from that stupid purchase. And it was a total vanity purchase. And all they had to do was wait 3 months. And they could have gotten everything on a fire sale and renegotiated all the contracts. Those are CEOs of a successful Fortune 500 company. These people are not bright. Okay, it should be obvious to everyone by now. The people in Hollywood are stupid, like actually stupid. They're putting out movies that are unsuccessful and they're following the same unsuccessful pattern over and over again. They're starting streaming services, which they must be able to do the math real quick and realize those streaming services cannot ever make them money, ever, you know? And then they're relying on those streaming services to be profitable. And they're not gonna be because they don't understand what Netflix did. And it's over and over again with these people. They're just making these mistakes over and over again. These are not bright people. These are not people with a plan that could implement a plan. They may have a plan, they just can't implement the plan. And maybe that's because they're implementing something that is unimplementable. Lots of things are unimplementable, right? And some things seem unimplementable and aren't. You know, like you could look at the founding of Spotify, right? This guy knows his buddy, he's a really good programmer, goes to his buddy and he says, you know, you know, can you send music to a random person anywhere on the internet within, I forget what the time frame was, is I think it was under 1 second or 3 seconds or something like that. And his buddy initially said, no, you can't do that. And then of course he's a good engineer. So whenever a good engineer says, no, you can't do that, just wait a week. They'll figure it out. Yes. So he goes and figures it out. They form Spotify. Spotify's a success. Because I could have told him that was possible and probably showed him how to do it. It's not that hard. But you gotta be an expert at that stuff to know. I happen to be a performance expert, networks in particular, but other things. Um, you have to know that up front. And if you don't know that, it seems impossible, right? If you're the kind of engineer that relies on frameworks and stuff, yeah, you're never gonna make it. Like you gotta hand code that stuff. There's no way around it. So some great things are born from the impossible, but also there are some things that are just never going to happen, right? Like no one's going to buy, you know, that any any man can be any woman or vice versa, right? No one's going to buy that you know the blue haired people. Why does blue hair cause obesity? Oh, anyway, um, that the blue hair people are like morally upstanding humans, right? No one's gonna buy that, you know, it's okay to have pedophiles in office. Like these things are not gonna fly. And I'm not saying they don't happen and that we don't have errors and mistakes. I'm saying that the general population is eventually gonna wise up to the fact that this doesn't work. Right? No one's gonna buy unfettered immigration being a good thing in their country forever. Like you can hide it, right? But when they find it and they find out about the rape gangs and stuff, eventually that those chickens are coming home to roost. How they'll roost, I don't know. But if you keep denying it, for example, it's not gonna go well, right? I mean, you can keep blaming Elon Musk as an organization that has $100 million for homelessness, but the fact of the matter is you have that money too, and you didn't spend it on fixing the homelessness. So, I mean, these are not sellable stories ultimately, and they may fool people for a little while, and they may fool some people forever, but it's a small number. And ultimately, these little stories are not going to work. You're not going to buy it, right? No one's going to buy that you're a brilliant movie critic because you critique the Odyssey because you know the written work very well. Like, who cares? I mean, a lot of people will sit there and talk, Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message, which I have my doubts about, by the way. And then they'll sit there and they'll critique the movie The Odyssey on the basis of the written word. And I'm like, apparently you don't believe Marshall McLuhan. There's a contradiction in what you're saying and doing. It's a performative contradiction. And they just want the world to work differently where they're actually way smarter than they will ever be, ever. They want the world to be such that the smart people are the ones making all the money. But smartness is not valuable, especially not monetarily. And I'm sorry about that. What is valuable is work, like getting stuff actually done. And do many people who get stuff actually done just get ripped off? Yeah, absolutely they do. And if value is just money, then the people that rip people off are more valuable than the people that do the work in some cases, right? But certainly not in all cases. And oh, by the way, ultimately they're not, because those people are not well respected and their lives blow up and there's no one there for them when it does. And I shed no tears, shed zero tears for them. Why did my camera fall? I do not like this camera. I might buy another camera. But well, actually, I can't buy another camera, but someone might buy a camera for me. If you wanna buy a camera for me, you can donate. Actually, I don't think I put the links in this time 'cause, ah, slipping. Maybe the links are there, I don't know. What does my description say? "Help me buy a new camera. I will." Um, that's how I got my whiteboard. Somebody bought me a whiteboard years and years ago. It's very useful. That's how I did all my early slides, was on the whiteboard. Used to whiteboard everything on the Discord server, it was great. It's good old days. We had Manuel, everybody was engaged, everybody was online. Now people have lives and families and all kinds of silly stuff. So I don't know what people are doing. Why? Your real life is online on the YouTubes. Maybe they feel guilty. I'm going to make them feel guilty. Interestingly, my experiment worked, by the way. I did guilt Castle into watching a monologue and taking notes. And then just something bad happened in the family. It was not super bad, but something bad happened in the family. He had to go take care of it. It's the only reason why he's not on. So guilt works. It's a useful tool. You can manipulate people to doing what you want. And it's like I said in the monologue, that's a lot of what we're seeing. And people have weaponized guilt to get other people to do things. And because guilt is a feeling, that's why you can't override that with facts and logic. Like all these people are like, I don't understand why they don't just look at the evidence. And I'm like, that's because you're an idiot and you don't understand basic human behavior. And you probably took a psychology course, which will make it worse because psychologists also don't understand basic human behavior, by the way. That's not their business. Their business is to train you to be a practitioner who helps people through therapy. That's a completely different set of skills than basic human behavior, actually. There's almost no overlap, in fact, which might be surprising, but also I did learn a bunch of psychology. Thank you, public broadcasting stations. Because I grew up in Boston, Philip Zimbardo did a whole psychology series a million years ago, and I watch reruns of that. That's how I learned my psychology. So I also read the DSM-3, like the whole thing. Because when I was young and psychotic, I could do things like that, and it didn't bother me. Now I would not do such a thing, and I'm more on the burn all the books side. So just in case somebody's asking, just burn. So screw it. Let's go back to oral tradition. It'll be fine. Actually, it'll be better. Oral tradition is better. More participation, and participation is the only form of knowledge. Always good, right? Can't get knowledge from a book. You can get information from a book. You get knowledge online. You get information online. You only get knowledge from participation, and you can participate somewhat online. And I'm happy that people participate here. That's great. Although I don't see much live chat going here. Come on, guys. Um, but ultimately, there's more richness in being in person. And it flits in and out of my brain, this way to do the layers. So first of all, there's a lot of them. And I'm always like, oh, I really want to do as many layers as possible to show people how complicated things are, that complication leads to combinatorial explosion. Because then you have to show them the complexity, because the thing that solves combinatorial explosion is complexity. And so the complexity collapses the combinatorial explosion down to a few options. The reason why scientists don't like it, I know there's a complexity science. Actually, I know a great deal about it, but don't think about that. It's not relevant. The reason why scientists don't like the complexity collapse that happens to the combinatorial explosion is because it's not a single variable, and it's not even we'll call it a reasonable number of variables for them, because they don't look at patterns. They look at implementations. They look at systems when they're done. They try to find processes and procedures. They don't like it. You can't propositionalize some of this stuff, right? Which is why I can tell you, like, oh, they're using guilt, right? I have to show you examples of how guilt is being used. That's what I did throughout the monologue for you, right? Try to show you examples of how guilt is being used, both positively and negatively, both against Elon Musk and against yourself, right? And how the projection works, because there's always three things. There's never only two. Don't be a binary thinker, right? There's always three ways that this you interact with this stuff. And it's super important, actually. It may seem trivial, but it's not. And the projection of the guilt really important, because that's climate change. Climate change is projection of guilt. Somebody's taking your internal guilt and casting it onto the world and moving it to other people and things like that. But you have to project your guilt. Like, that doesn't work with me because I don't project my guilt. I'm like, no. I know what my role is in climate change, and I don't use and never have once used lawn fertilizer, because lawns. I've never had a lawn at either of my houses. Right? Lawns do more damage to the climate and to the immediate natural environment than any of the things they're talking about. Like, actually. So, and I know this, so they're not going to fool me with this climate change BS. It's not going to happen. Right? So they can't steal my guilt and make me a climate warrior. They can't do it. They can try if they want. But it's not going to work. It's never going to work. Right? Because I'm doing my part. I recycle. Like, but in my house, I don't use their recycling system. That doesn't work. I already know that. Interestingly, they don't recycle glass here. I'm like, really? It's the most recyclable thing we have, and you don't recycle that one thing. Fair enough. It's probably better off in the landfill with other things anyway. But man, we just throw away a lot of glass nowadays. I try to use it. I got a bunch of glass that I keep, but we're gonna need to expand the house eventually, because you can't keep every glass jar. Eventually, I'll have a shooting range up, and then we'll blow them away as targets. That'll be fun. Someday I'll get out there and build the outdoor shooting range. It'll be fun. Go and shoot the guns behind the dam, dampen the sound a bit, make sure you're facing down. Everything over there slopes down. It's the wetlands, basically. Build a nice little berm. No one to shoot. There's nothing to, you wouldn't hit anything. Someday we'll get there. All right, no questions, no live chat, no one wants to jump in and keep me company. Anyone? Bueller? I can't guilt anybody into joining and keeping the stream alive. Because I would, just use a little guilt. Why not? Everyone else is. Seems like the fashionable thing to do. And consider too how groups use guilt, like group level guilt. Right. And that's like the climate system wouldn't work without this idea of humanism, right? Oh, we're all humans and we're all part of one big species. It's like bullshit. Garbage. You're not going to guilt me into climate, whatever warrior nonsense. I got things to do in the world, and that's not a thing that you do in the world. It's a thing you do to the world that destroys it, but that's a different problem. And the bottom line is you want to focus on the most important thing, right? Which, you don't want to feel guilty. You grow bigger than your problems, and you can be better because the world needs you. And so be better, because that's what makes the world better. If you want to make the world better, all you have to do is be better, because you're a part of the world. So problem solved, right? You don't need to solve the climate problem. You don't need to be angry about the trillionaire or whatever. You don't need to do that stuff. You can actually just be better, and the world gets better instantly. And you have the most control over yourself and how better you are. And that's the issue. That's the issue. All right, guys, let me shut it down. We're gonna do it again next week, hopefully. I don't see any blockers for that, so we should be here. I hope you're here. You get any suggestions, or put them in the comments or whatever, or come on the Mark Wisdom Discord and drop them somewhere in the Navigating Patterns channel. Oh, I want you to talk about this. Maybe I will if I can. Have a great week, and I will see you later. Be good to yourselves. Take care of yourselves, and be good and take care of others.